My skin has been so bad recently, which is the reason why I haven't been filming, but then I realised that life is way too short and I should probably record videos, so deal with it. Hi folks, Harry here, and today I'm going to be talking about my favourite Stephen King villains. So I was inspired recently by a thing I did on my Instagram story, where I asked people to give me things that I would list my top 3 of. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but I'll put in a picture here of what I did. And someone asked what my top 3 Stephen King villains were. So I put my top 3 Stephen King villains. But that gave me an idea. What if I just make an entire video about my favourite Stephen King villains? I've definitely got more than 3, and there's so many that I'd love to talk about. So I have, I think 7, I may be wrong, 7 Stephen King antagonists that I want to talk about today. Typically when I make these list types of videos, I like to start at the bottom and then work my way up to my favourites, but we're not going to do that today. I'm going to start off with my favourite, and that is John Rainbird from Firestarter. So Firestarter, if you did not know, is my favourite Stephen King book, and it is just perfection. I absolutely love it. And a very common theme that I think you'll find in this video is that my favourite Stephen King villains, my favourite villains in general, are the fully human ones who have no supernatural aspects at all. And that is because that character only does bad and evil things because they want to. It's not because they're an evil monster that has to rely on eating people or causing harm to people. They're just a human who genuinely wants to do these bad things. And John Rainbird is exactly that. I'd say the worst thing about Rainbird is he tries to act as though he's a friend to the main character, who is just a little girl, and she is quite vulnerable. And she genuinely believes that he is her friend until he reveals that he is indeed evil at the end of the book. For a character to be so cruel, it's just impossible not to despise them. And my favourite Stephen King villains are the ones that I love to hate. And John Rainbird, every single time his name pops up, I just think, ugh, what a twat. And those are my favourite types of villains. So that is why Rainbird is my favourite Stephen King villain. My second favourite Stephen King villain is Annie Wilkes from Misery. So Misery was my favourite Stephen King book for a very long time until I read Firestarter, but I still love Misery just as much as I always have. And Annie Wilkes is genuinely one of the most terrifying characters I have ever read about. Again, she is human, and everything that she does is purely because she is an evil and horrible person, rather than a supernatural force driving her to do these things. She does things off her own accord. And again, she does something that John Rainbird does. She acts all nice to the protagonist, and then she reveals her bad side, or her dark half, if you wish. She is menacing, she's manipulative, she's terrifying, and just downright cruel. One of the creepiest things about her is she genuinely believes that the things that she is doing is for the greater good, and she genuinely believes that she is helping the main character, when in actuality she is torturing him. I find that those kinds of people in real life are also terrifying. Like, they genuinely believe that the bad things that they are doing are good, so trying to tell them that the things that they think are good are actually bad is quite a difficult thing to do. So if a character like Annie genuinely existed in real life, it would be very difficult to reason with her and explain to her that what she's doing is bad. And she'd probably get so angry with you that she'd run you over with a lawnmower, so I don't think it's worth trying. Annie Wilkes is just terrifying, let's leave it at that. Number 3 is Randall Flagg. So Randall Flagg actually appears in many Stephen King books. I think the most notable ones are the Dark Tower series, The Stand, and The Eyes of the Dragon. So Randall Flagg, I would say, is the Satan of the Stephen King multiverse, and he features in more Stephen King books than any other character. I think that's safe to say.
This is why we can't have nice things.
So Randall Flagg has gone under many different names in different Stephen King books. In The Stand, he was known as Randall Flagg. In the Dark Tower series, he is known as the Man in Black. And he's also gone by many other names. But at the end of the day, Randall Flagg is Randall Flagg, and he is terrifying. As I said, I genuinely believe that Randall Flagg is like Stephen King's Satan, like the devil of the Stephen King multiverse, because the things that he does are so horrible. He's so evil. Although this time he's not entirely human, he's still just as terrifying. And the next one that I'm going to talk about is also another non-human villain. And if you weren't expecting this bloke to appear at some point in this list, I would be very surprised. So Pennywise, the dancing clown, or It, or the Deadlights, is obviously the main antagonist in the book It. And even though I said that I find Stephen King's human villains a lot more terrifying, Pennywise is such a scary antagonist because he's built off the foundations of fear. He exists to hunt, prey, kill, eat, entice, and it's petrifying. So It is an entity from a dimension known as the Macroverse, and it is a shapeshifter that is able to morph into the embodiment of your biggest fears. So the reason why I find it so scary, and the reason why I would recommend it to so many people, is that everyone on the planet could be scared by at least one thing in this book. The main characters in this book are a group of children, and children are the humans which are most easily frightened, so they are It's favourite prey. So at one point, It morphs into a leper, at one point he morphs into Dracula, at one point he morphs into Frankenstein's monster, but as most children are petrified of clowns, It mostly takes the form of Pennywise the dancing clown. And the creature of It, especially in the form of Pennywise, massively reflects child predators and how they can be enticing to draw kids in and then do unspeakable things to them. And that is exactly what It does. It has such an enticing charm for a child. It lures it in and then it eats it and kills it, and it's petrifying. Obviously, It is supernatural and it relies on being evil to survive as an entity, but that doesn't make it any less terrifying. If anything, it makes it a little bit more terrifying because it's completely unstoppable. I guess that kind of contradicts what I said earlier, but with it just works. Pennywise is bloody terrifying. The next one that I'm going to talk about is one that you probably won't know unless you're a die-hard Stephen King fan, and that is Tack from both The Regulators and Desperation. So both of these are companion novels and they are set in parallel universes, but they both have the same characters. Desperation, I'd say, is in maybe my top 20 Stephen King books, and The Regulators, let's just say that I didn't really like this one. But in both of these novels, Tack is like a ghost, a spirit from ancient mines that completely possesses a person, makes them lose all sanity, and just makes them start going on killing sprees, kidnapping sprees, rampages, and it's just really, really scary. So the main plot of Desperation is there is a police officer from the town of Desperation in Nevada called Collie Entragian, and he is possessed by Tack. He is completely taken over by this supernatural entity, and he starts to kidnap people driving past Desperation as a police officer by maybe planting things in the back of their car or on their motorbike and imprisoning them in Desperation. And he's very, very violent, and very often he yells, "Tack!" But throughout the novel, he starts to say "Tack!" more frequently, and every single time he says it, it's just more scary, because as the frequency builds up, his sanity decreases, and it's just a very clear indication that his psyche has just gone whoop, it's just gone completely out of the window. The more that Tack attacks his brain, his psyche's just like yeet. But once a person has been possessed by Tack, they can never get back to normal again. You can only kill them to stop them. So once Tack has done its business with one person, it just moves straight on to another. It's like an endless chain, and it is petrifying. And I can't believe that Desperation is so unknown as a Stephen King book. There was a movie adaptation in 2006, which is quite possibly the most underrated thing I've ever seen. It's really, really good, and it's quite a faithful adaptation of the novel as well. So if you are interested to see what Tack is, then obviously read the book, but also watch the movie as well. I think that the movie represents it really well. Tack! Next up is one of my favourites, and it is Rose the Hat from Dr. Sleep. So I'm personally one of the people that absolutely loves Dr. Sleep. So many people hate this book. But even if you are one of those people that despises Dr. Sleep with a burning passion, Tack! You've got to admit that Rose the Hat is one of the best, most developed, and most terrifying Stephen King villains. And there's no denying that. Rose the Hat, in a way, kind of reflects Pennywise in the way that she draws in children and then feeds off of them. She definitely reflects a child predator. If you have seen the movie adaptation that came out, I think, late 2019, the first scene of that film is Rose the Hat luring in a little girl and then killing her. She's just such a cruel person, and obviously she's not human, she is a kind of psychic eating vampire, but we don't really talk about that. It doesn't make much sense. Tack! But do not question the true knot, because not only will they suck out all of your steam, but she'll kill you! Like, she's petrifying, she's so scary. And I think this book proves that Stephen King can still write absolutely petrifying villains that will go down in history as very notable figures and antagonists in horror. Because Rose the Hat, oh my god, Rose the Hat gives me straight up nightmares. Like, I never want to encounter a person like Rose the Hat ever in my life, because, honey, I don't know how I deal with that. So the next villain that I'm going to talk about is from The Shining. But I want you to guess who you think I'm talking about here. Who is the villain from The Shining that you think I'm talking about? I'm going to give you 5 seconds and I want you to comment it below. No cheating and just waiting to see what I say or skipping ahead 10 seconds. No. Comment below right now who you think I'm talking about. 5, Tack! 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. I'm talking about the Overlook Hotel. If you are a Stephen King fan, you probably knew that I was going to talk about the Overlook itself, but maybe to a less avid Stephen King reader, you might think I'm talking about Jack or the individual ghosts at the hotel. Oh no, 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 no. I'm talking about the hotel itself. The Overlook is filled with individual ghosts that attack people's psyches, yes, we know that, but just the Overlook itself is so atmospheric. It is so scary. At the end of the day, it is the Overlook Hotel that drives Jack to insanity. He loses his mind just from being in this place, and even though it is the ghosts at work, I kind of feel like the ghosts from The Shining are like the Overlook's puppets. Like, imagine the Overlook Hotel as the evil mastermind, and then below that are the ghosts acting as the puppets, carrying out the Overlook's dirty work for it. Very spooky shenanigans. Maybe you don't understand if I'm talking about the Overlook itself being a character, but I hope you understand. There's not really much else I can say. It's just its own character in its own right. Let's leave it at that. Okay, so those are my favourite Stephen King villains. Let me know in the comments down below who your favourite Stephen King villain is, and if I missed out any villains that you think I should have mentioned in this video, please let me know as well. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big fat thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more bookish content from me. All of my social media links are in the description below, and I will see you next time with a new video. Goodbye. Tack!